Namo Bhagavate Shri Arunachala Ramanaya Om Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Arunachala Ramanaya Om Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Arunachala Ramanaya Om Bhagavan Ramana is here with us now. Right now, he is here with us. He is teaching us. Of course, he is just our own self. He is just our own self. Means that's what you are. Listen to him. Listen to yourself, your deepest, innermost self. The teacher is the teaching. This is why we bow, give thanks, express love to the Guru, teacher. There's only one teaching, and that is the teacher. And there's only one teacher, that is yourself. This one teacher, one teaching, goes by many names. One of them is Ramana. This is what I like to call him. And I say him, he is not a him, really. But I like to call him, he. Beyond all these words is what he is what you are. Ultimately, nothing to do with names, forms, words. The silent teaching within. The words are only to direct you to the silent teaching within yourself. That's it. That's it. Yes, you can go home now. Well, you know what I mean. You're probably already home, literally. That is the only point of the words. We sometimes say we give two teachings here in Satsang. We have the verbal teaching on the level of the concepts, the words, and we have the deeper teaching that is always flowing in silence. There's only one way. There's only one way to liberation. I know that sounds narrow-minded, by the way, to some at least. I know this is a red flag if someone says, "Ah, there is only one way." And by the way, I know it. It's my way. I know this. There is only one way. Luckily, the saving grace is that the only way is you have to come back to your own self. This is the opposite of a narrow-minded teaching because we're saying the teaching is within you. It's not something that Tom Das has and you don't have, and therefore you have to get it from Tom or substitute any other individual in place of Tom. That's the cult like teaching. The cultish teaching is the one that says, oh, this person has got the teaching. You have to go to them. I say, only Bhagavan has the teaching, but he is you. You see the difference, I hope, between the truly narrow-minded teaching and the open teaching that doesn't rely on any intermediary whatsoever. You don't need a priest or a pope or a book or a scripture, even. You don't need to have a particular type of brain or mind, a particular type of body or skill set. You see how this is totally the opposite of a doctrine, a belief system. We are saying, you are that. You are the treasure. And you are the treasurer as well. You are that which guards the treasure. You are the doorway to the treasure. You are the treasure and you are the treasurer. You are the treasure and you have the lock and the key to unlock the lock to the treasure. It is all in you. You have to just listen to yourself. You already know the way. Just as a baby or an infant knows how to walk, naturally they will pick it up. They know how to walk. They will learn it. They will develop. A baby knows how to drink. You know the way home to yourself. The problem is if you listen to the mind doesn't know the way. The mind can never know the way. The mind can think it knows the way. The mind can think it doesn't know the way. Both of these are false. If the mind thinks it knows the way, that is false. If the mind thinks it doesn't know the way, that is false. The mind itself is false. You know the way. This is why Bhagavan says the highest teachings are in silence. This is why we start the meetings with silence. This is why there is silence throughout this meeting. The mind will ask questions like, how? How do I go back to myself? Or, I don't know how to do it. I can't do it. Or, I know how to do it. Or, Tom is wrong. Tom is right. I love what Tom is saying. Oh, I hate what Tom is saying. All these sorts of things the mind says. All these things are distractions. Only come back to yourself. The mind will have lots of quarrel. How do I do it? What do I do? Don't listen to the mind. Listen to what you are, which is prior to the mind. The source of the mind. Bhagavan says the source of the mind. He means that which was there before the mind was there. He says, find that place from where the mind came from. Means that which was prior to the mind. Before the body, before the mind. That is what you are. This teaching is a gentle teaching. It's full of beauty and grace. It flows organically, naturally, slowly, gently. It is like water. It has an effect. You don't even realize it's having an effect. And suddenly, after some time, you realize, oh my gosh, it's eroded away it's created this entire cliff face or something. That's what water does. Its teaching's the same. You don't realize how it works necessarily. It's not one of these teachings necessarily where you go and suddenly everyone's waking up. Ping, 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 everyone's waking up. Oh, I got it, I got it. And then you see a few weeks later, a few months later, they've lost it again. This is a gentle teaching, heartfelt teaching. It may go quickly, but often it's like the tortoise in the hare and the tortoise. Slow and steady wins the race. Boring, slow, steady, consistent, but wonderful, organic, natural, gentle, full of grace, full of love, full of happiness is this path. Bhagavan, Ramana is ourself. Ourself means what we already are, always have been, always will be, and are right now. Does that make sense? You see? That is what you are. Ignorance is thinking you are a person, a body, mind, entity. This is what Bhagavan and the scriptures call ignorance, avidya. Vidya means knowledge, avidya means not knowledge, no knowledge, without knowledge, ignorance, we say in English. Is lack of knowledge, lack of understanding. Is thinking you're a person, you're a body, mind entity, you're a limited entity. There's no possibility of progress or its opposite, regression. progress, regress, progress, regression. There's no possibility of either, in truth. We cannot progress, we cannot regress, regress. There is no pro or re. There is just what we are. We can appear to progress. We can appear to go backwards, to regress. But actually, we can only be ourselves. Beyond the concept of going forwards or backwards. We can never regress because we are the self, the Almighty, the Absolute. How can we regress? So there's no falling backwards. In other times, I've said we can only go forwards, which is true. We can only go forwards on this path. We can only come nearer ourselves. But ultimately, even that is not true. Bhagwan is here. Why worry? Why worry? When we are caught up in thoughts, in feelings, in sensations, we are no longer listening to Bhagwan. We're listening to the objects, the multiplicity, the duality, the many things, the thoughts. In Bhagwan's teachings, all of these things that we see, that we perceive, are manifestations of thought. Mind projected, projections of mind or energy. If we listen to these things, if we listen to the mind, the thoughts, the body, the mind, the sensations, the sense objects, the world, the senses, if we go this way, it appears that we are a person in a world in which we can go forwards or backwards, progress, regress. But actually, if we come back to ourselves, we'll realize the truth. The option to come back to ourselves is always here, in every time, in every place, for every person, or apparent person, or apparent time, or apparent place. You are that. Who am I? You can ask yourself to help you. Who am I? To whom does this thought arise? To whom does this thought occur? To me. Who am I? What am I? Who am I? I am the self. I am that which sees, that which knows, that which is prior to the body, the mind. That in which the body and mind appear. That is what I am. I am the beingness in which all things arise and fall. But I never rise or fall. I am that in which things appear to go forwards or progress and go backwards or regress. But I myself never go forwards or backwards. I am not in time. I am not in space. Time and space are in me. What am I? Who am I? I am not these many things. I am that which is prior to them, the source of them, that in which these things rise and fall. Let me look at that, discover that, be that which I actually am, always have been, always will be. Let me be what I have always been. So there is a great secret that Bhagwan openly shared with anyone who was willing to listen. This is a great secret that is missing from many modern contemporary expressions of non-duality. And he didn't say this to everyone. It depends who was asking, how interested they were, because this is how the teachings work. If someone asks you, if someone asks a teacher how to go to the post office, the teacher will respond in kind. You know, go down this way, take the left. Post office is on, you'll see it ahead of you on the right. They won't say, oh, there is no post office. They won't say, oh, that is just the dualistic projection. The answer is given depending on the level of the question, spontaneously. There's no individual will, it's spontaneous. In truth, there is no liberated person. The liberated sage is actually a fiction. There's only one, pure consciousness, one without a second. Bhagavan Ramana gave us wonderful secret. He said, as long as you pay attention to the objects, liberation will not occur and ignorance will persist. Many people cannot understand this teaching. What are objects? let us define. An object is anything that you can perceive. We have gross objects, we have subtle objects, the gross and the subtle. The gross objects are the things that we would say are perceived by our sense organs. Tables, chairs, cups, saucers, cars, trees, buildings, the sun, moon, stars, the heavens above. Everyday objects. They have apparent, objective reality. I can say to you, how many fingers am I holding up? And you can say, oh, 3. And I can say, yes, you're correct, 3. For those of you whose eyes are closed, I'm holding up 3 fingers right now. And then the subtle objects, the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, which are apparently private to me alone. I might say, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 1,000,000. Can you guess what it is? And unless you're very lucky, you will not be able to guess what it is, because that object is a subtle object in my mind, a thought, an idea. Sensations, feelings, thoughts. This is the subtle body, the mind. These are objects. Typically in Bhagavan's teachings, the gross and subtle objects are the same. They're just objects. Objects is, so what is the definition of an object again? Anything you can perceive. Another definition of object is anything that arises in consciousness. Which is the same as anything you can perceive, just wording it differently to make it clear. As long as you are paying attention to objects, consciously or unconsciously, if you're seeing objects, Bhagavan gave us a huge revelation. Many people cannot understand this. He said, as long as you're seeing objects, you will consider yourself to be a body-mind entity. There's nothing you can do about it. You see objects, you will consider yourself to be a person, a body-mind entity. That is ignorance. You have to contemplate this. Many people cannot accept these kinds of teachings until something goes quite badly wrong in their life. Until they experience significant suffering. Because when things are going well, when everything is going fine, then you think, well, this is non-duality already. Objects are included, you'd say. Non-duality includes duality. Whereas the scriptures say there is no duality in non-duality. Obviously, that's why it's called non-duality. They say one without another, one without a second. There is no duality, no multiplicity in non-duality. But many expressions of so-called non-duality will say, oh, the manifestation is a play of life. It's the play of non-duality playing, which is fine. This is a wonderful teaching. And it will help many people, this teaching. Traditionally, this is called Vashishtadvaita. Or it's called Dristi Shristi Vada. The idea that the relative and the absolute are one. They're two sides of the same coin. This is a genuinely wonderful teaching. It alleviates much suffering. But it's very rare that Bhagavan taught this way because it's not ultimately liberating. When something goes wrong, what that is varies from person to person because it depends on your conditioning, on your vasanas, on your ideas, your beliefs, your values, your expectations. When something goes wrong, then these teachings fall apart. They don't work because they're not genuinely liberating. They don't reveal that which is truly birthless and deathless. They don't reveal the immortal nature of what you actually are, the true divinity of what you are. And it doesn't really truly show you that you are not the body mind. So, what is the remedy to this? This is one of the problems Bhagavan said. As long as you're aware of objects, you will consider yourself to be a person. You will be caught in ignorance and you will suffer. You won't suffer when things are good. Just when things go wrong, you'll suffer. And eventually, unfortunately, or we can say fortunately, things will go wrong. Why do I say unfortunately? Things will go wrong? Because I don't want anything to go wrong for any of you. Why do I say fortunately things will go wrong? Well, because if it wasn't for things going wrong, you wouldn't turn within. Most of you, myself included. Most of us, it doesn't have to be this way, by the way. But most of us will only be attracted to this path through suffering. You realize the other stuff doesn't work. That's why you end up here. Not for everyone, but for most of us, the reason we end up here is because the other stuff hasn't worked. Or if it has worked, it hasn't worked enough. So the remedy Bhagavan's taught us is to take our attention and lovingly, happily, in our own way, in our own time, like the tortoise and the hare and the tortoise, take our attention and slowly, gradually, happily, gently, but surely bring our attention back to ourself, the I am, the subject. And as our attention comes back to the subject, automatically it is withdrawn from objects, from the body, the world, the sensations, the mind, the thoughts, the feelings, just to the pure consciousness. And our consciousness is emptied of objects. And as the consciousness is emptied of objects, its true nature is revealed to us. Just like the clouds dispersing to reveal the sun. And as our true nature is revealed, we feel happier, more loving. Because this is the nature of ourself, is happiness and love and light and pure positivity without any negativity. Something that is impossible for the mind to even really conceive of, even though it pretends it cannot. This is why self-inquiry is the only way. Again, it sounds like a dogma, but self-inquiry is saying you are the only way. If you go outside of yourself, you won't find what you're looking for. Remember the old lady, story of the old lady who dropped her precious jewel inside her house. And she was looking for the jewel outside her house. And she was looking and looking and looking and getting worried more and more. Well, why couldn't she find it? And a passerby walked past and said to, the passerby saw this elderly lady looking incredibly worried and frantic and anxious. And so the passerby approached the lady and said, "What's happened?" And she said, "I've lost my jewel, my precious treasure." And then the passerby said, "Where did you lose it?" She goes, I lost it in the house." And then he said, "Well, why are you looking outside the house?" And she said, "Well, the house is dark. I can't see anything in there. There's light out here. I can see much better out here." What to do? What to do? If you lost the jewel inside the house, you're only going to find it if you look inside the house. Is that a narrow-minded thing to say? Is that a bigoted thing to say? Because someone could say, "Tom, how dare you say that? Why are you saying, well, you think you know the way, don't you, Tom? You're so arrogant." Yeah. There are many ways. Maybe I'll find the jewel outside the house. You'll never find the jewel outside the house. It may help you going outside the house though, because the advantage of looking outside the house, you may finally realize you will not find the jewel outside the house. And this is the value of lots of other teachings. They may be a part of our journey, and we might have to do them to realize that they may benefit us in some way, but in the ultimate sense, they will not benefit us because they will not grant us what we truly are looking for, which is liberation. You might find lots of other things. You might find copper coins. You might find pretty leaves and nice flowers outside the house, and that might be nice for a while. But eventually, we want that jewel, that precious jewel that we've lost. That's ourself. I only find that indoors, in your house. The only way. That's why Pokemon says the only way is self-inquiry. Call it what you like. You don't have to call it self-inquiry. We have to go back to ourselves. If this was not the case, by the way, if we could release our ignorance and be aware of objects, if we could be aware of objects and not be ignorant, then there'll be no need for self-inquiry at all. Do you realize that? Yeah. If there's no need for it, why do a self-inquiry? There's no need. It will say, "This is it here. All is one already. There's consciousness and the objects of consciousness, they are one and the same. That's it. Everything's happening by itself. No one doing anything. It's just all happening. And it's just consciousness playing, a play of consciousness in consciousness. That's it." But there's some annoying questions that come along. Like, for example, here's an annoying question. How come you can see something and I can see something different to you? How can we have different experiences? Does that mean there are two consciousnesses? And what about Ola? Maybe he has a different experience. And what about Sarah? Maybe she has a different experience. Are there four different consciousnesses now? These questions you cannot answer with those teachings. With Bhagavan's teachings, all these answers become clear. We discover the truth. There's only one consciousness, and I am that. We are that. You are that. You discover it's only one when you go inwards, but you don't discover it's only one if you don't go inwards. You only discover it's one when you go inwards. This is why Bhagavan says, go within. Guru Vajka Kovai. According to Ramana Ashram, this is the most systematic and comprehensive collection of Bhagavan's spoken teachings that systematically describe the path to liberation. It says here, the most comprehensive collection of the Maharshi's sayings is a Guru Vajka Kovai. It's the most precise, systematic, and authoritative exposition of Sri Bhagavan's teachings, explaining step by step the theory, practice, and experience of jnana, the truth supreme, which is being as life eternal, pure awareness, perfect bliss. Chapter 29, Turning Inwards. Verse 186. This is the third verse in the chapter. Poor seer who suffers endlessly because you still perceive the object. Poor seer who suffers endlessly because you still perceive the object, not the subject. Please look inward, not without, means outward. Please look inward, not without, and taste the bliss of non-duality. You suffer endlessly. Why? Because you still perceive the object, not the subject. Please look inwards, not without, not outwards, and taste the bliss of non-duality. Verse 187. Oh, heart of mine, it is not wise to stay out. Safe it is to stay within. Conceal yourself from Maya, which plans to draw you out to destroy you. Stay within. Verse 185. How to make the mind, which now looks painfully at forms and features, there without, means outside, turn inwards. How to make the mind, which now looks painfully at forms and features there without, turn inwards by asking, who is this I? This mind. By asking who this I, this mind is, which sees this trivial world and thus directing it towards the self. Verse 192. For the man of Dharma seeking experience of the state supreme, the heroic action needed is to draw the outward darting mind and fix it firmly in the heart. What is the heart? It means yourself, your essence. The heart of the matter is the essence of the matter, your heart. There's a whole load of verses on this. And you can see the video I've put together on it called Turn Within, where I've got a load of quotes from this text, put them together for you. You can listen to it if you want to. It's a great revelation. It's revealed in the Upanishads as well. We also have it in the text Who Am I, don't we? The text Who Am I in the collected works. Right at the beginning. Question 4. When will the realization of the self be gained? Answer from Ramana. When the world, which is what is seen, has been removed, there'll be a realization of the self, which is the seer. You see? When the world, which is what is seen, that was my definition of an object, wasn't it? What is perceived. So the world means the whole, all the objects combined is called the world. Question 4. When will the realization of the self be gained? Answer. When the world, which is what is seen, has been removed, there will be realization of the self, which is a seer. Questioner can't believe this. Doesn't make sense. So question 5 is, will there not be realization of the self, even while the world is there? So the question is asking the same question again. He got the answer already, but he's not happy with it. Will there not be realization of the self, even while the world is there? Answer, there will not be. And then the question says, why? And Bhagavan gives the answer. He says, I'll paraphrase, he says, it's like the rope and the snake. As long as you see the snake, you won't see the rope. And you'll be scared because you think it's a snake. When you look carefully, when you investigate yourself, you'll see yourself as you truly are. Just as when you see the rope, the snake disappears. Similarly, when you see yourself, there will be no objects. This is his answer. Let me read it to you. Actually, let me read a different version, which is a better translation. You know, the collected works, as many of you know, there are distortions in the translation. It's not translated accurately. So what I'll do, I'll go to the path of Sri Ramana. And in the appendix to the path of Sri Ramana, part 1, we have a translation by Sri Sadhuam, which is much more accurate. It says here, just as the knowledge of the rope, which is the base, will not be obtained unless the knowledge of the snake, the superimposition, goes, so the realization of self, which is the base, will not be obtained unless the perception of the world, which is a superimposition, ceases. Superimposition means what? It means objects. Objects are superimposed onto consciousness, like the images of a movie are superimposed on the screen. Superimposition means objects. World means objects. Just as the knowledge of the rope, which is the base, will not be obtained unless the knowledge of the snake, the superimposition, goes, so the realization of the self, which is the base, will not be obtained unless the perception of the world, which is a superimposition, ceases. And then in the question and answer version, the questioner says, well, how do I do this? And then he gives the technique of self-inquiry. How can I remove the world? This sounds impossible, ridiculous even. And this is a great secret of Bhagavan. He's revealed to us. As long as we are aware of objects, the ignorance will persist. We have to withdraw our mind from objects, including the body and the mind. to perceive what we truly are. This is why self-inquiry is necessary. Most seekers, unless they've gone through some difficulty, they won't be able to accept this. They will say that the relative and the absolute are the one. We don't need to withdraw inwards. But when fortunately or unfortunately or fortunately, something negative happens and suffering arises, then people will choose, perhaps people maybe will see the value of these teachings. But each will come to this in their own way. We do not need to force anyone to see this. The key thing is we see it if we are interested. If we're not interested, we don't have to see it either. We can just be happy with whatever is happening. But once you get onto this path, if you truly desire liberation, what will happen is Bhagavan will slowly but surely force you inwards. Yep, he'll try and lure you in with the promise of realization, but he'll also bat you in, hit you in from the outside with suffering. So, it's like, and this Bhagavan is yourself. It's out of love. In your own direct experience, this world, which we call the waking state, entirely ceases, entirely disappears in dream and in deep sleep. So in your own experience, this world completely ceases. It's not permanent. So can that be the self? Can that be real? Can happiness lie there as well as the implication? Because if it ceases, then you cannot find lasting happiness there. Temporary happiness has got another name for it, has got another name for itself. There's another name for temporary happiness. It's called suffering. We don't realize this. We don't realize that temporary happiness is also called suffering. So that's the first thing. It cannot be the reality. Reality is always here, never changes, it's always present. The waking state cannot, the world, the body, the mind, the world cannot be real, cannot be fundamental, because they completely disappear in the other two states. Some people say, oh, but look, I can feel this. Look, I can feel the body. I can feel it. I can touch objects. They're real. I can feel them. I can see them. You can see them. But this is also the case of a dream. If you're in a dream, you'll say the same thing. Oh, look, I can see the dream car. I can see the dream dinosaur. That's my best friend in the dream, you know? My best friend Rex, the dinosaur, in the dream. It's real. I can see him or her. Rex and Regina, you know? You can see them, but it's the dream. So Bhagavan points out, because you see something, because you sense it, doesn't mean it's real. For that means a dream is real, or a mirage is real, or an illusion is real. You will not find lasting happiness in the world. Just like that lady will not find her treasure outside her house. When we go outside the house to look for the treasure that we've lost inside the house, we wander in the outside world of the three states, the waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state. These are all outside the house. These are the three gardens of the house, we could say. We're roaming in, trying to find happiness. We won't find them there. We only find them inside the house, in the self. Only the eternal can know the eternal. The finite can never know the infinite. So if we're looking for the eternal, if such a thing exists, we won't find it with that which is transient, that which is temporary. We won't find it with our waking state apparatus, our waking state equipment, the body, the mind, the senses, the thoughts, the sensations. When people say speak from your experience, they're talking about waking state experience typically. And this is why it's said the self knowledge or experience of the self is beyond experience. It's not experience. We call it experience or we call it self knowledge, but it's not knowledge. It's not experience. Both of these are for the mind and the senses in the waking state. Self knowledge has got nothing to do with the body or the mind or the world. As I sometimes say, if self knowledge was to do with the body and the mind, then if you're seriously injured, you'll lose your liberation. If you've meditated for 30, 40, 50 years and finally attain liberation, then it's some kind of knowledge you have in the brain or the mind. And someone comes along and donks you on the head with a hammer or something, then you lose your liberation because it's in the brain. So not much of a liberation. Or if you get, a bad case of the flu and it goes to your brain, maybe that will knock out your liberation. Maybe if you play football or soccer, and you header the ball too hard, that will knock out your liberation. Maybe you have to header it again to get it back again. Liberation is not to do with the body, the mind. Otherwise, it's temporary and not worth having, or not totally fulfilling. Only the eternal can know the eternal, and you are that. Only you can know yourself. This is why the only way is to go within, because you are that. You are the teacher, you are the teaching, you are the taught. It's one. Only can be known in silence. What does silence mean? It means no objects present. The objects are the noise and silence is yourself, the subject. You see, the only the person who has climbed in this analogy at least, only the person who has climbed to the top of the mountain can guide you to the top. And Bhagavan has climbed to the top of the mountain, metaphorically speaking. And this is why his words can be trusted. If we try and use our own logic, our own reasoning, because, well, assuming this is the case, because there is ignorance there, that ignorance will taint your own logic and own thinking. So if you rely on your own experience, the distortion present in your experience will contaminate your line of thinking. And this is why we need to listen to the teacher. That's why we should listen to Bhagavan, his teachings he's given us. See if we can adopt his way of thinking rather than rely on our own mind and senses, which deceive us. Now, if he was telling you that he knows best and you don't know, then we should be wary. But because he's telling you that you know the way, it's inside of you, we should trust him. But we each come to this in our own way. We each find our way to this teaching in our own way. Exactly how that works, I don't know. Well, I do, but it's not, you cannot put it into words. You call it grace. You can call it grace. My experience personally is that I did not choose any of this. I could say Bhagavan chose me, or I could say it was just given to me. I was compelled to follow. I didn't choose this. I wouldn't have chosen this. I liked my objects. But then you realize what works and what doesn't work. It brings you here.